is not just a show. This is a shift. A reset of how men think, how men heal, and how men lead. Before behavior, there is belief. Before legacy, there is mindset. And before change reaches generations, it must first reach the mind. This is bridging generation. Yeah. We were raised on survival, not reflection. Taught strength, but not emotional protection. Passed down rules, never passed down tools. So we repeated cycles, thinking pain was the fuel. Different decades, same inner wars. Men grinding hard, but still unsure. We inherited limits, disguised as truth, and called them manhood, handed down to the youth. But growth don't start with doing more. It starts with thinking different than before. What if failure was feedback, not shame? What if growth was learned, not fate or name? We don't stay fixed in who we've been. We expand the mind and life begins. Belief is the seed, mindset the soil. Growth is the reward of intentional toil. This is bridging generations, voices of men, where the mind gets renewed and healing begins. We don't pass down fear, we pass down plans. Blueprints for growth, hand to hand. From presence to purpose, from pain to design. We build better futures with a growth mindset. They told us that's just how men are, but we questioned the ceiling, raised the bar. We learned growth is a discipline, not a phase. A daily decision in how we're raised. Old men teaching lessons from scars. They survive, young men bringing vision, asking why different perspectives, same destination. Healing the man heals the generation. The growth mindset blueprint gave language to pain. Turned I can into I can learn again. No longer stuck in past definitions. We design men with intention. Growth is intentional. Mindset is foundational. Healing is learned. Legacy is built. Presence over pride, process over ego, blueprints, not excuses. This is how men grow. This is bridging generations, no fixed identity. We evolve, adapt, grow intentionally. We don't repeat cycles, we redesign systems. From the mind to the home, to the way that we lead them. The same motivation, it's transformation. Voices aligned through growth across generations. Growth is not accidental. Mindset is the real inheritance. And when men grow, families heal, communities rise, generations change.
Good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. Tonight we enter sacred territory. We are not just discussing fatherhood. We are not just talking about leadership. We are not simply examining education. Tonight we are confronting legacy. Because when men show up consistently, faithfully, intentionally, generations shift. The presence of a man can either pass down pain or it can pass down purpose. This episode is about healing the wounds many men inherited silently and choosing to become the generation that breaks the cycle. Tonight's conversation is not about perfection. It is about intentional presence. And I am here to tell you that this discussion has the power to transform homes, classrooms, and communities. Our guest tonight is a man who understands both humility and leadership. Principal George Goode, born and raised in the cool hills of St. Catherine and the community of Old Harbour, is a visionary educator, father, and leader who has risen from humble beginnings to become the principal of Old Harbour Primary School. He has embodied what he calls the 3 Ds: discipline, dedication, and determination, not just as personal mottos, but as lived values. From completing high school and enrolling in college at just 16, to mentoring thousands of students and raising his own sons, George Goode represents a model of manhood rooted in faith, responsibility, and generational healing. Tonight, we explore not just his journey, but the blueprint he's building for men in a changing world. Let us begin. Principal Goode, welcome to Bridging Generation Voices of Men.
Thank you so much, Professor Stephenson. It's an absolute pleasure to be on your program, and I really look forward to this interaction here tonight.
Awesome. It's an honor for me to have you here. I've heard, so many good things about you. Every individual I talk to, there's nothing but great things to say about you, the work you do, the work you've been doing, and that you profess to continue to do. So long before there is Principal Goode, there was this person, a person. Can you share a little bit about yourself before becoming a principal?
Well, that's a very long and detailed history, but I certainly came from very humble beginnings, and that is one that I am very proud about. So I hail from the hills of St. Catherine. I was born at the Spanish Town Hospital, but I grew up initially in a community called Cedar Mount in the hills of St. Catherine. Very small district, very, very rural district, yes. It's one of those communities that you don't have any taxis or anything like that. You have to walk miles to reach on the main road, that sort of a thing. I lived there for a short while until I was about 4 or 5 years old. And then I moved to Old Harbour, which is another community in St. Catherine, but a small community that I grew up in Old Harbour, where I spent pretty much my entire rest of my life, pretty much growing up there. So I am the last child of 6 boys for my parents, yes. And I would have gone to school in the hills and also in Old Harbour, where I attended Davis Primary School. I later went on to Tatius Golden High School. Growing up as a child, I would have experienced what rural folks would have experienced, carrying water. And it was like no chore. It was just fun. Yes, I would have experienced going to the river. I would have experienced the whole matter of watching to see the older ones in the community using donkeys to carry load out to the market and that sort of a thing. So I would have experienced utilizing our kitchen on the outside, that sort of a thing growing up. And when I remember and reflect on those experiences, I am just elated to see what has happened and how the transformation has taken place. And it gives that kind of satisfaction that you can really say it's a humbling experience, yes, where you remember where you're coming from and what it is that you have achieved over the years. So that's how I would start.
And that's a good way to start. And you talk about your experience. What did that experience, living in the environment in which you grew up, taught you about resilience, responsibility, and manhood?
Well, in terms of resilience and responsibility, certainly that experience as an humbling experience, I say I would have learned many lessons from that, right? I would have learned many, many lessons. First and foremost, watching those in the community, which was a generally low socioeconomic background. So everybody had to really work hard in terms of achieving what it is that they set out to achieve, to take care of their families, etc. So I would have grown up in that situation where I've seen persons working really hard to try and propel themselves and to try and survive, really. So I would have taken quite a bit of lessons from that. And that part of that lesson is really never to give up. So you have to be resilient regardless of the circumstance that you're faced with, because it's pretty much a do or die kind of situation. So I would have reflected, having looked on, to say, is this the kind of situation that I want to see for my future and for my family for the future? Or would I want to use this experience as one to propel me and to motivate me to go to a higher level? And certainly I would have taken out the positive messages from that, and the whole matter of looking forward to the next chapter, to wanting your family, my family, and my next generation to experience better than what I have experienced. But at the same time, appreciating what I would have experienced. Yes. And so I would never use my background to say that it is not something that I'm proud of. I speak proudly of my background, because even though we were poor in quotation, I would say I never knew that I was poor, because we were happy. Yes, we were very happy, experiencing the little that we had. It is what we grew up knowing. It is the experiences that we had. And so I cherish those experiences. And I'm just delighted that I can use the lessons of the past to help to propel my future, and to use it as an inspiration for my own children and those who I lead.
You know, Principal George, values are rarely self-created. They are modeled, and you learn from people that you grew up around, your seniors. You often speak about the 3 Ds: discipline, dedication, and determination. Who modeled those values for you growing up, and how did they shape the man that you are today?
Well, I would start by saying that my mother, my father, would have modeled those important values. So even though they were from such humble beginnings, I would have seen where they would have worked overtime. They would have gone in overdrive just to see that their children are taken care of, and to see that we got out of that situation. So even though that is where we started, it's not where we ended. So my mother, for example, would have been doing several jobs pretty much at the same time. So even though there was a shop at home, that sort of a thing, she would have gone out to make sure that she do the extra work on the outside, getting a job elsewhere to help in the home, to ensure that we were able to move from one stage to the next. And when she would have taken on something else that is higher than the first, then she don't stay at that one level to say that I'm comfortable with where I am. I've seen her moving from one step of the ladder to another step. So when I move to the next step and I maybe start earning some more, I start achieving some more, the idea is to move on to the next level. What more should I do? What can I do to? So it's a continuous movement. And that for me was discipline. That for me was dedication. That for me was determination. And I felt that I would have adopted those principles quite well. And those are principles that would say that it doesn't matter your circumstance, it doesn't matter where you come from, you can achieve more. Yes, it doesn't matter what your present circumstance is, that doesn't define you. Yes, it is about that upward mobility whilst appreciating the situations that you would have been in, because you learn lessons from them, lessons that will help to motivate you, lessons that will help to move you to the next level.
And important lessons like there are no ceiling.
Yes.
And no ceiling, very important. And it shows up here in your life, early in your life again, in that you completed high school and enrolled in college at just 16 years, which is quite remarkable. At that young age, what voice, internal or external, kept you focused when many of your peers are still trying to find direction?
Well, I I really wanted more. I had big dreams and I had big aspirations. I came from humble beginnings, but I had a vision, yes.
Mm.
And from very young, I started to envision what my life would look like. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a pilot, yes. And so I worked very hard. I remember when I was in primary school, I wasn't doing so bad at school, and I was promoted. At that time, they promoted you based on your performance. And so, because of how well I did, for example, in grade 4, then I didn't have to go to grade 5. I went straight to grade 6. So I skipped out grade 5. But then when I went in grade 6, I did not do as well in school. And so I did not pass for the school that I wanted to go, or those schools that people would look at as traditional high schools and the choice school, the schools of choice. And so I passed for a school that most people didn't want to go. I actually cried. But when I look back at what I've achieved at that institution, it was the best decision that was taken. So I'm saying that even though at first the situation seemed not favorable, I never gave up. So I went to the institution and I gave of my best, and I did my absolute best there to ensure that I was able to move to another level. And I would want to also add that one of the lessons that I learned is that when you have the right support system around you, that is something that can really move you in the right direction. And I felt that is what I had in my teachers, especially a particular teacher at high school. So I did have challenge in high school. I was not the brightest child in high school. I was not the 90s scoring child or the 80s scoring child. I was having my own struggles. And even though I had potential, I guess I did not have enough guidance. And so I remember in grade 8, for example, there were 33 students in my class, and I came 31 in the class out of 33, because they rank you based on your grade, who came first, who came second, who came third. I came 31 out of 33. That's almost dead last, as they would say in Jamaica. But I never used those things, those failures, etc. For me, I don't use them to lay down and play dead. I use them as a motivation for a greater comeback. And so by grade 9, I came first in class, moving from 31 in grade 8 to first place in grade 9. And by the time I got to the end of grade 9, going to grade 10, there was a teacher who took me at her home, saying that she saw the potential in me, but I needed that guidance. And so she took me at her home, literally to live with her, asked permission from a parent, etc. And so she would have set for me study time when I was preparing for my CXCs, and she would have given me that coaching that I needed, right? Because I'm not coming from a family of strong educational background. And so I was there fighting on my own to make things happen. And they saw that passion in me, and that drive that I had, that I wanted to be a difference in my family, in my community. And so I thank Miss Leachman, who was my teacher at high school. And I mean, other teachers played their role. But I would say that's a turning point in my life in terms of that kind of support.
And we say thank you to her as well, because of her, you have also impacted many lives because of what she did for you. You know, education is often discussed as a ladder, but for some, and probably in your case, it was a lifeline. You have said education is a passport out of poverty. For men who feel trapped by circumstances, how did education become your doorway to purpose rather than just a qualification?
Well, as I mentioned before, my background was quite humbling. I wasn't the kind of guy who wear the name brand to school and had the Clarks of then, or whatever the brand was back then, the expensive John Sport and all of these things. Um, Not saying that that is what matters, really, right? But I would have seen my own parents struggled in terms of making a way. I would have seen my parents, though working hard, they had to go in overdrive with their bodies, overdrive to ensure that their family could live a fairly comfortable life, to basically eat. Yes. And so I wanted to see more. I wanted better. Yes, I wanted to do better even for my parents, and so would have worked so hard. And I felt that, well, I recognize that I'm not going to get a business handed down to me. I'm not going to get some properties handed down to me. So I'm not going to sit and wait on that because just doesn't exist. I'm not going to get downtown and parade, as they would say in Jamaica, handed over to you, or any gold spoon. And so I had to find a way. And of course, I'm not going to choose a path that is going to get me in problem, that is illegal, right? Because those paths will never be lasting. And so the avenue that I saw that is best was that avenue of education, because your education can never decay. No matter how much money you have, they can take it away. No matter how much gold you have, they can take it away. Yes, no matter how many cars you have, they will devalue. Your property can burn down overnight and you lose everything. But when you have that education in your mind, nobody can take that away from you. Yes? And so when you have that qualification, that when you're so educated, you can utilize that powerful tool to get involved in other things, whether it is to get a job, whether it is even if you're having challenge in your own job, to utilize that great knowledge that you would have developed to utilize elsewhere. And I would have pushed hard to be educated. And once I got that education, then it would have got me on that stage where I became employable. Yes, I was employable, and I had the opportunity now to choose between this job or that job based on my training. And I continuously improve myself where education is concerned, and continue to make that a part of my upward mobility, a part of my upward development. And so that is something that I'm truly proud of. And so, yes, I'm not saying that I'm a rich man now. Yes. I'm not saying that I'm a rich man now, but I'm way more comfortable than where I once was. The generation that I take care of now are in a better place because of that educational impact that I would have taken on. Yes. When compared to my previous generation. And so, yes, I would say education has definitely taken me out of poverty, because whilst I'm not rich, I am certainly not poor. And so I give God thanks for that. And I'm happy that I could use that tool. And so this is something that I am passionate about. And that is why I push it so hard, where my students, my children, and those around me are concerned, because I know that it is a strong and a powerful vehicle to take you out of poverty.
And a powerful vehicle indeed. Principal Goode, you have a couple of your teachers here. We have Natalie Warren. She was on this program a couple of weeks ago. We have Shavani Chulan, I believe her name is. They said, that is my principal.
Oh, wow.
So they're here to, you brought them with you. And I just want to say thanks to them for joining us tonight. And for anyone who's watching, thanks for watching Bridging Generation Voices of Men. We're having a conversation here with Principal George Goode. All right, so leadership in education requires more than authority. It requires emotional intelligence. So, Principal George, as a man leading in education, how do you balance authority with empathy, especially with boys carrying wounds from absentee fathers or broken homes?
Well, that's something that is quite easy for me, because I'm empathetic by nature, yes, and I have a great balance when it comes to leading where task and the heart is concerned. Because at the end of the day, we're not leading machines. We're not leading sardines or any or files. We're leading people. Yes. And so you have to first learn to love people. And I have a natural and a passionate love for people generally, and the things that concerns people. And so whilst I work very hard to see the success, yes, of the institution that I lead, and the success of the children that I lead, because it's about their academic performance and the systems that are in place. So that's the task. That is important, and it plays a very important part in terms of ensuring that the task is completed. But I also have the human dimension of leadership, yes? Because, and that is why I can proudly say that my staff, for example, I get the full support of my staff, yes? We have a very strong bond. We have a very strong support. And I believe that despite the fact that in any organization, you may have dissent or varying views, etc. at times, as any organization would, for the most part, we all lock horns together to ensure that the business that we're there for is completed, and I get the work. And I believe that a strong part of this is because the people know, those who I lead, they know that I mean them well, and that the genuine love is there, and that I'll go out as far as I can to ensure that their well-being is taken care of as best as I can, right? But at the same time, requiring that the job is done. And so that emotional intelligence is important where that balance is concerned, where leadership is concerned, that emotional side. And so as I say, it's my personality natural. So it is not about being autocratic. It is not about being just pushing for the task to be done whilst not concerned about the individuals that I lead. So I'm concerned about the children. I'm concerned about the staff, the teachers, etc. And I give you an example. In many organizations, many schools, for example, most persons tend to recognize like a teacher's day, yes, but nobody recognizes the janitors really. There's no janitor's day. There is no tuck shop work a day. The persons who did the small menial jobs. And so from very early, I thought it important that everybody be valued. And so that is why at the institution that I lead, I would have instituted with my team what is called a support staff day. So all those members who are not on the academic staff, but they're on the support staff, doing the little work that is so very important, because others think it is small, but the school cannot run properly. It could never run if these persons were not there. And so we have the support staff day every year where these persons are recognized for their work and their worth. And so that is an example of using the human dimension where leadership is concerned.
And you know, the human dimension where leadership is concerned is showing up here. We have Stephanie Daniel Lewis, I think it's Stephanie Lewis. She's saying that best principal in St. Catherine, one book, never number two. So my guess is that she's a teacher as well at your institution. All right. So as your leadership expands, so does your influence and your responsibility. So Principal George, you have transitioned from classroom teacher to vice principal and now principal. How has your understanding of leadership evolved as your influence expanded?
Well, naturally, I never started where leadership is concerned. I started my training as a teacher. And so I went in the classroom, and as teachers, we were not trained to be leaders. And so I believe for me, it was, it's a mixture of both being born with it and development. And I think most of it is through development nonetheless, right? And so when I started as a vice principal, for example, in terms of taking up leadership position, what I would have done from very early, as a matter of fact, even before I became vice principal, I did have the aspiration for leadership. So that was quite clear in my mind that I knew that I could contribute. And so I knew that I needed to develop some more where leadership is concerned. And so whilst I have my own style in terms of how I administer leadership, what I can recall is that I would have gone from very early to enroll at the university, for example. When I was doing my master's degree, I went to do it in leadership and educational leadership and management. And that was from far back as 2011 that I would have enrolled in that course. And so I used that as that tool to help me, to give me some of the prerequisite skills that I needed to support what I already had in me. And so as I grew into that, I would have learned more about how people think, how people behave, how people, the whole expectation of those who you lead, and basically some of the things to expect. And so I give an example that perhaps in my earlier stage, I would think that it would be easy to just tell somebody the right thing that I think may be the right thing and expect that they would work with the change in order to move where the change is concerned. But as I grew older and started to study more, I would have learned, for example, that change is really not an event. It's a process, yes? And so when you try to enact these changes and someone or a group of persons come with a resistance, it's not something that fazes me. So perhaps back then I would say that would be something that was a bit unsettling, to say that you're trying to make what you think or what I think may be the right decision, and persons perhaps not seeing the vision at the time. But as I grew older, because I not only did my master's in educational leadership, but I went on to do the aspiring principals course through the National College for Educational Leadership. So I continued to, and I'm currently doing my PhD too in leadership. So as I get more involved in it, I would have used those teachings, those learnings to understand better how persons operate. And so when a change is to be enacted, for example, I would have known that you will have resistance to change. And that's just simply because people have gotten comfortable to doing what they normally do. And so when you just push something on someone, it will take a while. And so you have to go through a process in helping them to understand the change and to create that urgency and that need for change, and to explain the need for the change and use the data to show why the change is needed, etc. And at the same time, to not take it personal, to not take it in a negative way when people are resisting, really, because not that they necessarily want to resist, but it could just be that it is taking them out of their comfort zone. And so you have to help them to move on and to see the other light that you're trying to show.
Well said. Change is indeed a process. And when you let those who are experiencing the change understand why the change is necessary, it is so important. It makes it so much easier for them to accept it. Well said. Now, let us talk a little bit about fatherhood and generational healing. And of course, this program is Voices of Men, Bridging Generation Voices of Men. So you will notice that some of our questions are geared to men, not that we're ignoring women, but this show is about men. So I just want to add some clarity there. Stephanie did add that she is not a teacher. She is a grade 4 parent that said you were the very best in St. Catherine. So we should also make that note. All right, so let's talk about institutional leadership. Move from institutional leadership to personal leadership, fatherhood. What are some of the most damaging generational patterns men unknowingly pass on?
Some of the most damaging generational pattern that men pass on
Unknowingly.
I think that whole, I would really emphasize that whole matter of they're telling their boys that they're to be so tough that they can't express themselves, that emotional side. And so our boys are trained, our men train our boys to basically, when you are experiencing anything difficult, you're just to tough it out. Really, you're not going to talk it out, you're not going to cry it out, you're not going to utilize any other strategy, because you just have to be totally tough. Yes? And so where that is concerned, I find that a lot of boys and a lot of young men are hurting inside because they don't know how to unleash, they don't know how to let go, to talk to someone else in terms of the what it is that they are experiencing, right? And I think that is a serious challenge that our men unknowingly pass on to our boys, and I think it is affecting our generation. Yes, and so when a girl have a problem, a girl knows how to resolve. Yes, a girl know how to talk about it, but for a boy, it is just that you have to deal with it, and sometimes the energy, that pent up energy, becomes so bad they really don't know how to express it. So that is part of what I would really speak about. And another thing is the whole matter of our men passing on that aggression is strength. When you're aggressive, you are strong, right? And that is not necessarily the case. And then some of these things now, they take out these aggression on the women. they take out these aggression on their children. So our boys are taught to be aggressive and to be, and that now comes across later on in a way that many of them become abusive to their families, abusive to others around them. And that is why I believe that our generation experienced so much fight sometimes, so much hurt, because as something happens, somebody says something that you don't like, then you become aggressive towards them, and it results in fights, it results in war, whatever the case may be. So I think those two I would zero in on in terms of our men passing on to our boys.
And talking about passing on, let's talk a little bit about breaking cycles. And we know that to break cycles requires intentionality. You must be very intentional. So as a father to your sons, how intentional are you about showing up differently than previous generations? And what does presence look like in your home?
All right. So for my boys, well, I have two boys. And for me, it is very, very important to be absolutely present in their lives. And so I try to provide them with pretty much all that they need, whilst, and I want to make it very, very clear. No, whilst providing for my boys, they must know where the limit goes, and they must understand as boys or as children that nothing is ending, and there's no entitlement when it comes to these things. So there are different principles that I have to teach them as I go on. So for my boys, as a father, I try to be as actively involved in their lives as much as possible. The whole matter of homework, etc. And I must say that my boys are not with me right now. Yes. So we're doing a transition at the moment. And so even though they're not here now, I get myself involved just the same in terms of writing, calling, and going through the homework, even on video calls, etc., just to make sure that the presence is felt and that no aspect of their lives is short when it comes to their father, right? And so as we do this transition, I continue to provide that and that wholesome experience to ensure that they are duly supported, they are fully supported, they know that they can talk to their father about anything, right? And so I am their friend, but at the same time, I'm also respected at the same time. So they know that there is a line that you don't cross, but at the same time, that is somebody you can talk to about anything. So if there is something that you're having a problem with, then you can come. So there is no need to be fearful. There is not a barrier to say that if you say something is happening, then you can't, then that is going to get at you or whatever the case is. So we have that open relationship. They're young children, and so they're growing up. And so it is important for me to teach them the kind of values that they really require at this time. And so for me, what is different from the previous generation is the whole fact of being present, to know that I am present in their life, fully present as much as possible as I can be. Now, it is also important we're creating those traditions that are activities that's just between myself and them. Yes, so there are activities that we try to engage with that would have been different from per se previous generations, etc. So I try to create new experiences and to take them to new places pretty much every time, and it's just good. Yes.
What a way to end that. It's just good. There's no better way, right? So, you talk about providing. So provision is important, but you and I know it's never enough, right? Provision. So, Principal George, many men provide financially, but struggle emotionally with their children. How, and here's an opportunity for you to define fatherhood in today's changing world. Can you define that for us?
Um, so it is important for me that as a father, that you're not just seen as the money giver, yes, or that that source that your children can just call on when they need some funds or they need to fill some need financially. Fatherhood is way more than that. Yes, it is way more than that. And so, as it relates to defining what that looks like, yes, I really want to say it is about providing that guidance to your children, yes, that will help to shape their understanding of what life really is and what life really entails and how to make decisions. So it's not about forcing on your children whatever path that you necessarily want them to go, but it's about pointing them in the right direction and helping them to move from one step to the next. Yes. And so for me, it is very important, very important as a father for me to play a critical role in helping to shape those values that I would want to see inculcated within my children. Yes. And to take them to the places that I would want them to learn from. Yes. To get them involved in the things that I would want to see them doing, but at the same time, not just to point you to where you should go, but to help you to make that decision why it is that the other areas that I'm directing you from is not a good path. So when you teach your children just what it is that you want them to learn or to understand, why it is that you should say, so for example, I say not to smoke. All right, we just don't smoke, but then we have to also teach them what it is that is the negative effect, the negative impact, why it is that we shouldn't do it. It's not just because daddy say not to do it. It's not just because mommy say not to do it or whoever say not to do it, but they must also appreciate the other side of it. What can it do to me? What can be the negative impact to me, etc. And so those are critical aspects that I personally look at in my own role as a father and helping to shape what that good fatherhood is about. And of course, the whole matter of communication, proper communication, and opening up the lines where that they're not fearful, as I said earlier on, to have that kind of communication with me where that is concerned.
You know, you touched on this earlier. We talk about men showing signs of what they perceive as weakness when they show who they really are, their true selves. And because of that, many men suffer silently. So for men who feel pressure to appear strong but are quietly struggling, what would you say about vulnerability as a pathway to healing rather than weakness?
Could you go back with that one?
Yes, I would say that many men suffer silently because they don't want to show what they may perceive as weakness, right? So,
Yes.
for men who feel pressure to appear strong but are quietly struggling, what would you say about vulnerability as a pathway to healing rather than weakness?
Well, this is something that many of our men are experiencing. trying to be tough on the outside, but they're really suffering on the inside. And so for me, for situations like those where men are concerned, I would want to say to men in situations like those to feel free, feel open, yes, to talk about what it is that you're experiencing. Yes, you, like anybody else, you have a right to be hurting, yes, but there's a way to relieve it. There's a way to get out of it. Because when we have all these pent up energies inside of us, then certainly that is something that will just lead to what is to that kind of burnout, that kind of depression where men are concerned. And so it is something that I would not encourage for any man to experience any at all. And so it is okay not to be okay. So I would tell any man, it is okay not to be okay because we're humans. And once you are a human being, you're going to experience problems because that's what life is about. You will experience problems. You're living, yes? You're a living being. And so you must experience some amount of trials at times and whatever it is, yes? So the first thing I would also tell him, yes, is to it is okay not to be okay. So talking about doesn't make in you talking about what you're experiencing really doesn't make you any less of a man. And so men can talk about their experiences to others. Yes, of course, you need to find somebody who is trusted. And there are enough men like us out there who are trusted, yes, and who are reasonable and who are sensible enough and who have that emotional intelligence to not just think that as a man you can't have a problem and you must just be as macho as you can with it without talking about the instances or the situation that you have, because we're here to help each other. Yes, and so you want to associate yourself with people who have that emotional maturity and and that kind of standard, people like who are strong, yes, to provide you with that kind of support, because all of us experience our crucibles or challenges at different times. And so I would tell the man, really, it is okay not to be okay. And so once you experience these challenges, because if you don't identify what the problem is, if you don't identify that you have a problem, you can't fix it. So you have to first identify that, yes, I'm experiencing a challenge. Because if I think that I don't have a problem, I'm not going to accept somebody to help me to fix it. And so that is how I would look at that, where that is concerned.
No fixing what you refuse to own. All
That's
right.
right.
This segment here is what I call quick fire. So let us bridge generations quickly with your instinctive wisdom. All right. So, Principal George, one word that best describes the kind of father this generation must become. One word.
Wow. When I look at that one word, that's interesting. That one word that I think that this generation of fathers, so there are a few that are floating across my mind at this moment. But if I'm to choose one word that I would want fathers to be right now, then I would choose the word involvement. Yes, or involved. Yes. So I believe that fathers should be involved in the lives of their children. Fathers cannot be distant where it comes to their children in times like this. So whether it is that you're at the same location or you're at a different location, as long as you're a father, you must have a role to play, and a solid role to play in their lives. And it is not just about the financial support, but children, be it boys or girls, they need that emotional support as well. They need to know that their father is there to support them, regardless of what the situation may be. So it's not just that you're running with your treasury bank and your bank account, etc., but you have to be involved. And that is what this generation need, because our boys especially, and certainly our girls, need that father figure, right? And I know we have a lot of ladies online, but I must say the truth, that a woman cannot be a father. Yes, a woman cannot be a father. A father is a father and a mother is a mother. Similarly, a man cannot be a mother. And so it is important that the fathers are involved in their children's lives. And of course, if I was to think of other words, I would think about guiding, supporting, etc. But that main word would have been involved for tonight.
That word cover all those other things as well. So it's a good choice. Good choice. All right. So finish this sentence, Principal George. The greatest gift a father can give his child is?
The greatest gift a father can give his child is to be present in his or her life.
All right. We'll leave it right at that. No need to expound on that. Principal George, if you could correct one lie society tells young men today, what would it be?
One lie that society tells young men is that, and I'll definitely have to go back to that that whole matter where that aggression or that pent up energy is that men, that the whole matter that men cannot express themselves emotionally, or men should not express themselves emotionally. I think that is certainly a big lie, and men ought to be afforded the opportunity to have that emotional intelligence expressed, to have that emotions, those emotions that they experience expressed, so that they can better able to deal with those pent-up energies and those pent-up hurt and so on that men generally experience.
Thanks for sharing that. You know, we're talking about healing, and we know that healing requires understanding across different generations. And of course, this show is Bridging Generation, Voices of Men. So, Principal George, what do older men often misunderstand about younger men today? And what do younger men need to understand about the sacrifices of previous generations?
I think older men, so answering the first question first, I think older men really don't believe that fathers of nowadays can be effective because of change in generational beliefs and practices and so on, because the things that they taught of the past is not necessarily how we do things presently. So they perhaps think that younger men on a whole will not be as effective in terms of their roles as fathers, etc., because they may not do the things the way that they did it, because we are living a different age and things are dynamic. And so I find that older persons are less receptive to change. Yes. And so if it is not done the way that they are accustomed to it, then they see somewhat of a problem. And of course, there are the exceptions, right? There are the exceptions. But that is how I would answer that part. And as it relates to younger men, you said, what has it related to the younger men towards the older ones?
Yes, the young men need to understand about the sacrifices of previous generations.
Okay. Well, for the previous generation, I think that their sacrifice is immense. The kind of technologies, etc., that we have now, yes, the way we're able to do things and to make it easier to achieve things because of the whole where the internet is concerned, how quick it is to find information, etc. Right now, the whole use of artificial intelligence and all of that. The men of the past had nothing like that, right? They had to sacrifice their time. They had to sacrifice their brains. They had to sacrifice their bodies in order to ensure that our children are taken care of. In many of those cases, they didn't have even transportation to move from one place to the next. They had to walk for miles and so on, just to ensure that their families are taken care of. The men of now, we have everything at our disposal. The world has advanced so much. We have moved on to the fourth industrial revolution where technology is concerned, and now we're talking about the fifth industrial revolution. And so things are so different from before. And so pretty much there's really not much hard work in terms of physical, and it's not just physical, but in terms of doing what is necessary where the technology, etc., is concerned, that our older men really experience, they really toiled. And so we as the younger ones should really salute them.
Indeed. But do you believe that there is something missing that, and especially for not the extremely older generation, but older generation to an extent, that we're still living in the same world during the same times, and we all have access to the same technology, and maybe we should be open to have this conversation with each other, understanding that we are sharing the same opportunities, young and old, younger and older, and maybe we need to tap into that together and learn from each other, as opposed to saying that those are your days, these are mine, and we're different. But I don't think we're that far off. But that's why we're not acknowledging that and applying ourselves to the situation as is. All right, so we're getting close to closing, but sometimes the first belief to be rebuilt changes everything. The first belief. Principal George, if you were mentoring a young man who feels written off by society, what is the first belief you would help him rebuild?
I would say to a young man that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. I would say to a young man who is experiencing a situation like that there is good within you. No matter how bad persons think you are, there is greatness that is within you. I would say to the young man that there is enough in you, yes, for you to rise, for you to be anything that you want to be. And so as people, yes, we will go through our own little challenges at times, but I will say to that young man, it is time to brush off and get up and rise again. Yes. And so if you have that determined spirit, if you have that winning mindset and that mindset of being excellent, yes, and you can definitely achieve what you want to achieve. And so I'm saying to any young man out there, or just about anybody, that you can be anything that you want to be. There is greatness within all of us, and we just need to tap into our greatness, right? Ain't nobody's going to come and tap in it for us. And so you have to have that winning mindset and that dream to want to achieve so much more. And yes, you can. Yes, you will.
Absolutely. You know, legacy is not built in speeches. It is built in daily presence, and you have been present in all of the space that you traverse. You have been, clearly. Principal George, when your children, your students, and your community look back years from now, what do you hope they will say about the man you were and the legacy you left?
That's interesting. But yes, I would want to be remembered as someone who has made a positive impact, not just a passerby. Yes, certainly I will pass through, but you want to be remembered as somebody who has made a mark, who has made a difference in terms of transforming lives positively. And so when things are done in terms of the many accomplishments that you would have, or that I would have seen, or that persons would have seen, it is done to impact lives. So even where the school environment is concerned and the various partners that I try to get with my team to support the institution, it is done in a way to benefit the children of today and certainly the children of tomorrow. And so I want to be remembered as someone who has contributed in a significant way that element that is impacting on not just the generation of today, but has left a legacy for tomorrow's children to benefit from. And it is the same thing for my own personal family, the same concept where that is concerned.
Yes. And what is one intentional action fathers and father figures can take today to begin breaking generational curses and building healthier futures?
Well, we have to be intentional about everything that we do, yes. But where fathers are concerned, one intentional step that I think that fathers can take to ensure that the generational curse and generational challenges are broken is to really have a positive mindset. Yes. So sometimes I find that we're easy to accept the doom and gloom. Sometimes we are easy to see that the glass is half empty and not half full. And so I want our men to have a positive outlook on life. Yes. So you think it, you can dream. So you think it, you can achieve it. Yes. So you dream it, you can achieve it. Because if you think that you can't, if you think that it is impossible, best believe it's going to be impossible because you will not be putting out the effort to make it happen and to achieve it. And so if you have that positive mindset to say, yes, I can do it. You have that positive mindset to say, yes, I can propel from this level to the next. Yes, I can move my child from this level to the next. Then yes, you will do the actions that come with it to ensure that it happens. But if you think it can't be done, then 9 out of 10 times you won't do anything to make it happen.
All right. So I would like you to do two things for me. Before you make your closing argument, I'd like you to look into the camera as close as you can get. And I want you to talk to one person and say thank you to that person. You can call their name if you want to, for what they did for you to make you the person you are today.
That's a tough one when it comes to selecting one person. Yes,
One.
just one person. That sounds like a lot of politics. That sounds like a lot of politics.
We give you two.
But I'm gonna say outside of my parents, because they know my value for them. But I'm gonna say outside of my parents, I want to really express my deepest gratitude to my high school teacher, Miss Leachman, who would have taken me at a point when I was challenged, yes, and was having failures in school, etc., even though I had the potential. So she took me in her home, yes, and she would have helped me in a significant way, provided that guidance that I needed, and supported me in the very best way that she could in terms of my development. And I just want to say I am eternally grateful for her support in my own life. And I just want to say I trust that she's watching, but if she's not, I'm sure she'll catch it later on. But I just want her to know that I am eternally grateful. Words cannot express my thanks to her, because I believe without a doubt that that was really a turning point in my life when a teacher saw my need and really did what she could. And so that is why I have my own passion in terms of wanting to and assisting others to achieve their own goals. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Leachman. All right, so closing thoughts.
Okay, so my closing thoughts. So first and foremost, I want to say it's really a wonderful opportunity to have gotten this chance to speak on such wonderful program that is a worldwide program. And so I just want to say as well that we can do and we can be anything that we want to be. And as fathers, as men, we have a powerful influence, and we should utilize the influence that we have for the positive. Yes. And in utilizing that, we have to play a very critical role that we help our children to understand the important things of life, but not only our children, but we have to remember that it is a village that raise a child. And so whilst we want to see success for our children, we must also have a passion to see the success of the children of others. Yes, we don't, so it makes no sense we try to just propel our own children and then thinking that the others will become a menace to society, because they will become a menace to us as well. And so we want to have that village approach in terms of raising the child or the children, and ensuring that we all play our critical, pivotal role in seeing through that, where we are able to correct each other's children, etc. And I want to say to men that let us not be, and parents and all, let us not be offended when a responsible adult is trying to positively impact our children where that is concerned. And so that is a critical part where that is concerned. I also want to say to persons out there, it is not about where you come from. Yes, it's not about where you come from. It is about where you are going. So let not your circumstance, let not your past determine your future. So you could come from the humblest of beginning. Could come from the poorest of background. Could come from the most inner city community. You can be great, and you can be the next best thing in the world, impacting lives. Yes? So you don't have to come from a family that is born with everything, or you get everything handed down to you. Yes, and we have seen many instances of those where persons have risen up from their humble situations. And so, yes, you can, if you have that positive mindset and that strong will, that you can do it and you work towards it. So it is not just about having the mindset, but having the mindset take you a far way. But when you have that mindset, you know, have to put in the work, because hard work will certainly take you there. And so I really want to thank you all for participating in this program.
Wow. First, let me say thank you to our audience for watching us. And we ask that before you leave us, you share the broadcast.
Okay.
So important that you do that because we're not doing that just for us. We're doing that. What we're doing here is to spread the love, spread the word, and share what we believe is important. Tonight's conversation reminds us that masculinity is not about dominance. It is about responsibility. It is about presence over performance. It is about healing over hiding and legacy over ego. Principal George Goode, I want to say thank you for gracing us with your presence here tonight and for blessing us with your wisdom and that you have shared with us. You have lots of wisdom tonight, and we really appreciate that. I must tell you that I'm going to invite you to come back on this program because I know you have so much more to share, so much more information that men from all different generations need to hear. So I'm going to ask you to come back on. We'll work that out. Now to our audience. Principal Goode has shown us that a man who is disciplined in his faith, intentional in his fatherhood, and compassionate in his leadership can shift entire communities. To the fathers, mentors, uncles, and teachers who are watching us tonight, know that the village is watching you every single day. And the next generation is waiting. They're waiting for you to take the right actions. Let us be the men who break cycles, not repeat them. Principal Goode, I'm going to give you the last word.
Okay, again, I just want to say to our men, yes, that aggression is not strength. Yes, and that is one of the powerful statements that I would want to leave with, because many of us, we just believe that as men, we are supposed to be aggressive, and that is not what makes a man a real man. And so put away the aggression, yes, and put forward the positivity.
Thank you. And this has been Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. And my guest is Principal George Goode. Thank you so much. And see you next week.
This is not just a show. This is a shift. A reset of how men think, how men heal, and how men lead. Before behavior, there is belief. Before legacy, there is mindset. And before change reaches generations, it must first reach the mind. This is Bridging Generations. Yeah. We were raised on survival, not reflection. Taught strength, but not emotional protection. Passed down rules, never passed down tools. So we repeated cycles, thinking pain was the fuel. Different decades, same mental wars. Men grinding hard, but still unsure. We inherited limits, disguised as truth, and called them manhood. Handed down to the youth. But growth don't start with doing more. It starts with thinking different than before. What if failure was feedback, not shame? What if growth was learned, not fate or name? We don't stay fixed in who we've been. We expand the mind and life begins. Belief is the seed, mindset the soil. Growth is the reward of intentional toil. This is Bridging Generations, voices of men, where the mind gets renewed and healing begins. We don't pass down fear, we pass down plans. Blueprints for growth, hand to hand. From presence to purpose, from pain to design. We build better futures with a growth mindset. They told us that's just how men are, but we questioned the ceiling, raised the bar. We learned growth is a discipline, not a phase. A daily decision in how we're raised. Old men teaching lessons from scars. They survive, young men bringing vision, asking why different perspectives, same destination. Healing the man heals the generation. The growth mindset blueprint gave language to pain. Turn I can into I can learn again. No longer stuck in past definitions. We design men with intention. Growth isn't intentional. Mindset is foundational. Healing is learned. Legacy is built. Presence over pride, process over ego, blueprints, not excuses. This is how men grow. This is bridging generations, no fixed identity. We evolve, adapt, grow intentionally. We don't repeat cycles, we redesign systems. From the mind to the home to the way that we